Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show I have my buddy Guy Selga joining me to discuss the history and sometimes surprising content in the Country Bear Jamboree. Now folks, Guy is a huge fan of the Country Bear Jamboree, and I just love discussing this attraction with him since he's so passionate about it. So get ready to stomp your feet and clap those hands because it's all coming your way right after this. By now, you must know that Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. But have you gone to check out all of the Disney titles available to you for free? Simply visit audibletrial.com/DCTC and search Disney in the search bar. You can get yourself free titles like The Wonders of Walt Disney World or Disney's Land, Walt Disney and the Invention of the Amusement Park That Changed the World, and so many more. So head on over to audibletrial.com/DCTC and get yourself a free audiobook today. That's audibletrial.com/DCTC.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Hello, Guy, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. It has been quite a bit of time. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me back. I always enjoy coming on here and glad to do this again.
Well, I'm sure you're very excited today because this episode was specifically created with you in mind. Because one of my favorite things to do is chat with Disney fans about things that they are super passionate about. And I know maybe one other person who's as passionate about the Country Bear Jamboree as you are. You work the Country Bear Jamboree into a conversation the way I do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I love that about you. But I just want to start out by asking, when did this start and why exactly? What is it that just hits the right chord for you when it comes to the Country Bear Jamboree?
So I've had an annual pass to Disneyland since 1994, and even before that, I would go at least once a month with my mom because we had a family friend that would get us into the parks for free. And the one thing I always wanted to do was Country Bears, and I also really loved America Sings back then. I was too young for thrill rides, really. I guess in '94 I was 12 years old, but I was still really into the Country Bears. And just something about the music was so catchy. It was funny. It was a place to sit down for 25 minutes. It was in the air conditioning. It was just everything I loved about Disney, but a show that I could just sit down and take a lot of time to really enjoy. And I should also mention, I grew up with the Vacation Jamboree version of the show. I didn't see the original version until I went to Walt Disney World in 2008. So the vacation version and the Christmas versions are the ones that I really, really love and that I grew up with and I'm just still obsessed with.
Now that's fascinating. I didn't realize that. So you clearly love animatronic shows. So I did not grow up near a Disney park. So Chuck E. Cheese was my version of this. And, there's definitely a similarity, although quality is far superior in the Disney parks. But yeah, there's something about it as a kid, like those animatronic shows. And I don't think, at least I can't remember a time when I was young enough to think, oh, those are real. They were always animatronic figures to me. I don't know. Were you ever young enough that you thought they were actually real?
I cannot remember a time where I ever actually thought they were real. And plus, I was raised by my grandma, and I don't think I was ever allowed to think that bears were actually standing on stage singing to me, as much as I want that to be real.
So this attraction, it has a pretty interesting history.
It really does.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to let you talk about its history for a bit, and then I'll jump in because I just know how passionate you are about it. So go ahead, take it.
Well, it was originally developed for the Mineral King snow resort that Walt was planning in what ended up being the later years of his life. Mineral King, as you know, got canceled after he passed away, and there was a lot of issues with the environmentalists and that sort of thing. And then when Walt Disney World came along, they decided to develop the Bear Show, or the Bear Band, as they called it in development, into a full show. And it was added to Walt Disney World as an opening day attraction, and then it was brought over to Disneyland. It was so popular in Walt Disney World that where it has one theater, when they brought it over to Disneyland, they had two theaters for it because they thought it was going to be such a huge hit. But it was in the back corner of the park, and it wasn't as big as a hit as they thought it would be because it was kind of off the beaten path. This was before Splash Mountain was even back there, so there was very, very little foot traffic. So yeah, and then it ran in Disneyland and Walt Disney World for many, many years, and it still runs in Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland.
Yeah, now it is interesting to me because, we were talking about Chuck E. Cheese's a little earlier, and that was kind of Walt's concept, right? Like this, I believe, was supposed to be in a dining space for the Mineral King ski resort. Is that correct? I think I think I've read that too,
which would be, wow, what a dinner show that would be. I would never leave.
Oh man. And this was, the Mineral King ski resort was in the Sequoia National Park, which is in California. And one of the lead Imagineers on this was Mark Davis. And of course, Mark Davis is a name that a lot of Disney fans know. He was one of Walt's 9 old men. He worked on attractions like the Jungle Cruise and Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. And he was working along with Al Bertino on this, which is where the character of Big Al is kind of comes from and is designed after. But that was Mark Davis's forte, really, was character design and creating comedic situations just in like the illustration of characters. And talk about the perfect guy to take on this sort of show, I would say, right?
Yeah. And, something that doesn't get brought up a lot about Mark Davis is that he really brought humor to Disneyland. Mm-hmm. So before Mark came along to kind of quote unquote fix the Jungle Cruise, it was very dry. It was played off as if it was real. And so Mark came in and added all these comedic scenes like monkeys battling over a banana and the safari that was stranded up on the pole with the rhino underneath and the laughing hyenas and all that. So yeah, this was perfect for him with the character designs, and he adds a lot of warmth and character to just by looking at each bear, you kind of know what their personality is.
Yeah, he also did the same thing to perhaps an attraction that didn't necessarily need it, and that's the Haunted Mansion. And that's kind of why, nothing against the Haunted Mansion, but I think it's very clearly broken up into two parts, where the first half of it is really kind of dark and probably scary for children. And then once you hit the graveyard, there's a lot of comedy in there, and that's a lot of Mark Davis's work. And when they were creating that, I know there was kind of a clash of, I don't want to say personalities, but a clash of like opinion on what the attraction should be. And Mark Davis was all about the comedy. So, maybe more fitting in Country Bear Jamboree. It is interesting, though, as you mentioned, Jungle Cruise. Oh my gosh, what a serious attraction that was when it first opened. They really wanted you to really think you were on a jungle expedition, and it's crazy to think it's the complete opposite now.
Yeah, and if you want to see what the original Jungle Cruise was like, they have almost a full ride through on the Disneyland People and Places film that is on several DVDs, and you can look it up on YouTube. But they have a full ride through of the original version, and you can see how dry it is.
Yeah, what year would that have been that they started adding all of those comedic elements? Was that during Walt's lifetime? I'm not 100% sure.
I believe it was during Walt's lifetime. I wish I had the year in front of me because I just watched a documentary that was talking about this, but I don't remember the exact year. It was during Walt's lifetime because he actually asked Mark to come in and add humor to the rides.
Okay, we probably took it a little further than what Walt was thinking these days, but still, it's very, very cool. Speaking of, have you seen this video clip going on Twitter and everywhere? It went viral of, it was one of the overseas Disney parks, and the Jungle Cruise skipper is like, crazy intense. Have you seen this?
The Tokyo Disneyland skippers are really wild. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny and so over the top, which is, their culture is very much like that when it comes to their reaction to entertainment. It's so over the top. But I was like watching this and my first thought was, I'm kind of expecting Jaws to come popping out of the water because it felt very like Universal Studios to me, the way she was acting. It made me laugh.
Definitely.
Very funny. But so also working on the Country Bear Jamboree was Exitencio and George Bruns. They worked on some of the music, and Exitencio, I think, probably most famously known for writing the script and lyrics for Pirates of the Caribbean, as well as lyrics for Haunted Mansion as well, right? Grim Grinning Ghosts? Yeah, he wrote all that stuff.
He really had some hits in his career. I just can't imagine being that talented. And
especially since that wasn't what he was like trained to do, right?
Yeah, right.
He was not a writer; he was an animator.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, really amazing stuff.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the Country Bear Jamboree did open with Walt Disney World on October 1st, 1971. And it was super popular. Like, it sounds like way more popular than they ever expected it to be. So, they took note of that, and so it opened very soon after that. That's what was so surprising to me, was it opened at Disneyland on March 4th, 1972. So like way less than a year later, they were like, oh, all right, like this worked, let's bang it out and put it in Disneyland. And I mean, that's a short period of time to say, oh, it's a success, let's recreate it. Not only recreate it, but recreate it twice, since they built the 2 twin theaters for it. And
yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah, and even a new land for it. This is where Bear Country became a land. It was because of the Country Bears. Before that, it was the Indian Village, which, you talk about like the placement of it. Of course, it's placed where Winnie the Pooh is now, or it was placed there. And there's like a big walk between, let's say, the Haunted Mansion to that spot. So I have no idea. Do you have any idea what was where Splash Mountain currently is?
Splash Mountain was just a little hill, and you could see the train going by. And yeah, there was a cave where you could hear a bear snoring, which was moved to Splash Mountain, a similar effect with the same snoring noise after Splash Mountain was built.
Oh, in the attraction or like in the queue?
In the attraction.
Oh, no kidding. That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but there was really nothing back there. There was some bathrooms. I think it was called the Bear Country Bathhouse or something like that. But yeah, Bear Country and then Critter Country, when Splash Mountain opened, Country Bear's touch was all over that land. So there was Teddy Bear's Swingin' Arcade, and that had old-fashioned arcade games. And it also had this this little marionette arcade game kind of thing called Hoofin' Henry, and it was a little Henry puppet that you could press the buttons and make him dance.
Oh, kind of like Pinocchio and
yeah. So they reskinned that machine to be Woody, and that dancing Woody machine is still in Disneyland today if you go into Pioneer Mercantile in Frontierland. I
know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, on Main Street USA, there's the Pinocchio one, I think in like the candy shop. And then the Woody one is in like one of the first shops you hit in Frontierland. So that's the one that was the bear. That's so funny.
Yeah, and one of those crazy Disney auctions, that has all the Disney stuff, and they make the news because everything goes for insane prices. They actually had the actual Hoofin' Henry for sale a couple of years ago in one of those.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't realize that. That's really funny. Now, since we're on the topic, you mentioned, it's currently called Critter Country, before that Bear Country, before that the Indian Village. Do you think we're getting a name change for this whole, Princess and the Frog takeover?
I sure think it would make a lot of sense. Because that whole little land back there is I mean, really, it's like almost an extension of Frontierland. So it doesn't really match the aesthetic of New Orleans. I'm wondering if just New Orleans Square just gets extended back there or something.
That's what I'm hoping happens. But, a previous guest co-host on the show and a friend of mine, Sam Carter, on social media, he posted, he's like, okay, so we've got Princess and the Frog coming. We're going to expand the, New Orleans area, but like, let's call it the back bayou or something like that. And in place of Winnie the Pooh's attraction, we put in like a bayou where like Kermit the Frog and all of his Muppet friends are hanging out. I was like, I actually kind of love that idea.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, if they put in Princess and the Frog and keep Winnie the Pooh, and like they just keep this really tiny, ridiculous area that's Critter Country, I'll be kind of upset by that.
Yeah.
In any case, I digress.
Can I talk about the kind of queue waiting area in the Disneyland version real quick?
Yeah, of course, please.
So I guess I'll start off with the Magic Kingdom version. When you go into the theater, it's just kind of like a waiting room, and the floor there's a wooden floor, and there's little bear claw marks all over the floor.
I love that detail.
Yeah,
so
which
much.
is such a great detail. And then there's paintings of the bears on the walls, and it's great and it's nice. For the Disneyland version, the waiting area looked almost like a backstage area for the theater. And you could see all the different doors for the different bears' dressing rooms, and they were all appropriately sized for each bear. So like Big Al had a big, huge door. Henry had a tall door, and then a little door on top of that for Sammy, and Bunny, Bubbles, and Beulah had 3 little tiny doors, and everybody matched perfectly. And there were all these little there was like a little love note on the wall from Teddy to Henry, and just little piece of bear ephemera all over the place. And you could still find that at Tokyo Disneyland. Actually, that's the exit hall in the Tokyo Disneyland version.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really loved that detail.
Well, as you're describing it, it actually makes me think of like Muppet Vision 3D.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we get that still with Muppet Vision 3D, which is pretty cool. Now, you were talking about how, they built the double theaters at Disneyland, but it just never caught on the way that it did at Walt Disney World. And the thing that's so fascinating to me that I've kind of realized in the last 5 years or so is that the location of attractions makes such a huge difference.
Definitely.
And as you mentioned, this is way back in the back corner, like really kind of the furthest thing aside from now the fact that Galaxy's Edge is like beyond that even. But I remember going to Disney's Hollywood Studios and realized like Star Tours wasn't that popular there. Not anything compared to Disneyland.
Yeah,
I was like,
definitely.
well, it's like right at the entrance to Tomorrowland versus a bit deeper into the park. And I mean, that explains the Country Bear situation, and also explains why Winnie the Pooh here at Disneyland barely has a wait, whereas at Magic Kingdom, where it's like right in the heart of Fantasyland, it's quite a popular attraction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Country Bears at Disneyland specifically, I think its size really was a detriment to it also. I think if it was a one theater thing, it might still be around today. Because, really with one theater, how small the footprint is in Magic Kingdom, what are you going to do with that space, really?
Yeah, other than make it a store.
Yeah, exactly. Make it a store or like an extension to Pecos Bill or something. But, in Disneyland, it had a much bigger footprint.
Yeah, I never experienced it at Disneyland. I grew up going to Walt Disney World, and that's the version I know. So I've never experienced it outside of Magic Kingdom. So and I always think about it when I'm there and I'm like in the Winnie the Pooh attraction. I'm always like, gosh, this is kind of a weird location and kind of a large footprint, to think that the Country Bears were here at one point.
Yeah.
It opened in Tokyo Disneyland on April 15th, 1983. And the twin theaters were built there as well, and also some better animatronics. Some time had passed, and they upgraded the animatronics that they used for that. So it's always good to see them plussing the show.
And I'll say this too: that show over in Tokyo looks gorgeous. It looks like the day they installed it. The bear's fur is just beautiful. Like they brush it every night or something. I don't know what the deal is over there. But it's wonderful. And so like I mentioned before, the exit is the dressing room area with all the different doors. The waiting area to get into the shows is almost like a lobby that you would see in like an actual theater. And there is just Country Bear stuff all over the place. So there is a restaurant called Hungry Bear, which is also in Disneyland, but there's also one in Tokyo Disneyland. So in the Tokyo Disneyland version, in one of the little windows, there is a napkin from the Hungry Bear restaurant, and written on it is the lyrics to the first song in the show.
Oh, wow. As if like an artist had been sitting at the restaurant and jotted down lyrics.
Exactly that. And there's everybody's instruments everywhere. And there's like pictures from all their travels. There's magazine covers from all their different tours and awards that they've won. It's so cool.
That is pretty crazy. Like it's so interesting how different cultures will grab onto different things. I mean, obviously it's immensely popular over there. They have all the different versions of the show, which we'll touch on a bit later, but it is so fascinating. Now, where is it located? Like we were talking about, Disneyland is in a back corner. Is theirs in Frontierland, or where is it located in Tokyo?
So yeah, over there, Frontierland is called Westernland.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much in the center of Westernland, kind of on the path leading to Big Thunder Mountain. And it's also kind of near where you exit Adventureland. So it's a very good location, and it's a very cute show, and they love cute things over there. So
yeah. Now let's head back to Magic Kingdom for a second and talk about the show that we know and love today. Now, this version of the show opened in 2012, and I want to discuss this current version of the show because it was updated in 2012 for several reasons, I think. Part of it was the length of the show. We are definitely in a society with a much shorter attention span these days, so I think it probably felt like it dragged a bit. So they cut, like a good 5 or 6 minutes out of it, I believe, right?
Yeah, there's a lot cut out of it.
Yeah. So they did that, but also we're living in a time of cultural sensitivity, and we've seen updates like this to Pirates of the Caribbean with the whole auction scene. Of course, we were just discussing what's happening with Splash Mountain, where the Princess and the Frog is being brought in. So I do believe that part of the reason for that update was also to deal with some of those maybe things that aren't necessarily appropriate in current times, even though we're talking about 8 years ago at this point. And the thing that's so interesting to me is, even with them having gone back and done that 8 years ago, there's stuff in this show that is still, it's quite shocking that is in a show in Magic Kingdom Park still today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I love so much about the Country Bear still, is that it's just one of those things Disney would never do now.
Yeah.
And I like stuff like that. And really the only thing that was cut out, questionable content wise from the current show was comments about Trixie's weight.
Oh,
there's just several little quips about it.
Was there fat shaming in the original show?
Yeah, I don't know about fat shaming, but more like everybody has something to say about Trixie's weight.
Gosh, and we got Big Al there still, and nobody cares because he's a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
My gosh. That's funny. Now, you audibly commented when I mentioned, the abridged 2012 version. So are you don't enjoy it as much?
So I'll just say that I'm so glad it's still there in some form. Mm-hmm. I'll take what I can get. But I do think a lot of the charm and nuance was taken out. Max, Buff, and Melvin, on the wall, I don't even think they have more than one line in the show anymore. And there's just some weird pacing issues and weird blank spots. And I think the show is kind of weaker for it. But another kind of observation I see is that I've heard that they shorten the show so they can fit more shows into the day.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that necessary?
Well, see, that's the thing. There's so much time between the shows now. Like, they really drag out the wait between the shows so they can fill up the theater, that I'm just wondering if they're even getting in more shows than they used to.
My guess is that that feels like a Disney-made excuse so that they don't have to admit that there was some cultural sensitivity issues that they had to deal with. That's, right. Yeah, I don't believe that they were so busy at the Country Bears back in 2012 that they're like, oh, we better fit more shows in. I don't think so. So that's interesting. It's a show I enjoy. I go every time. In fact, the last time I was there, I sit down for the show to start, and I think literally a minute in, everything just froze. And the cast member gets up and they're like, all right, well, that's going to do it for now. And we all had to leave. I was like, oh, man, I actually waited for this. Crap. But
yeah, I watch it 3 or 4 times every time I go.
Do you really? Wow. Okay. So I just realized this is your carousel of progress. That's how I am with what is it about these animatronic shows that have us so bewitched? It's so I can't not go to Carousel of Progress multiple times.
That's a good way to describe it. I'm just enchanted by this show. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You know what I realized probably a couple times ago that I went, and I'm still kind of blown away by it, is notice the next time you go, if you haven't already, how well hidden the lighting equipment is.
Yeah.
When you go to most theaters, a live theater, you'll see lighting tools and stuff all over, and they're not hidden particularly well. And it's just kind of one of those things, a suspension of disbelief situation. But I just remember being there and watching the heads on the wall. What are their names again? Max and what?
Max, Buff, and Melvin.
Max, Buff, and Melvin. And at the beginning and end, they have these spotlights on them. And I'm looking around where are these spotlights? I couldn't find them. And as the show ended, I kind of went to a weird corner or something and noticed where it was coming from. But I'm these are some of the best hidden lighting equipment I've ever seen in anything. It was spectacular. And that's the stupid stuff that excites me.
Yeah, and this was only a few years after Pirates of the Caribbean, and you ride that and it's try to find lighting equipment in there too. So they must have just had really good theatrical lighting majors working at that time.
Yeah, except for the flash of light before you go down the drop for your photo.
Well,
that was quite obvious, and it
that's
felt
a modern thing
and out of place. But yes, no, it's the lighting's great in that. Now let's just talk about some of the lyrics. I've got some of the songs in front of me here. And, Ernest sings this song. It's called If You Can't Bite, Don't Growl. And I guess this is a Tommy Collins song. I'm not going to pretend to know who Tommy Collins is. But it's interesting because, it's kind of a mix of original song / some original lyrics / some standards. And I don't know country music well enough to always know which is which. But I found this one was a Tommy Collins song. Are you familiar with the song, outside of Country Bears?
I'll just say I'm not familiar with any of the songs really outside of the show. I've listened to them all, but I can't say this is my favorite kind of music.
Yeah, me as well. So even more fascinating that you're such a big fan and you're not necessarily a country music fan. So let me just read these lyrics. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, this is in the center of the Magic Kingdom. One night, I left the wife at home and I went out with the boys. I was acting like a Don Juan and making a lot of noise. A go-go girl caught my hand. I said, I can't. I'm a married man. She said, if you ain't gonna steal, you better not prowl. Don't do-si-do with a go-go. If you can't bite, don't growl. Well, I mean, in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Obviously, as a kid, you're not thinking about, there's this guy going out to essentially a strip club.
Yeah.
Or a bear going out to a strip club. One of the strippers are trying to, give him some extra enjoyment. And he's like, well, no, this is where I stop. I'm a married man. And he has a son with him? I went out with the boys. I don't know. I went out with the boys. I guess those could be his friends, his guy friends,
I think,
right?
Yeah,
okay.
His bear friends, yeah. As
I was initially reading it, I was actually thinking he took his, sons out with him. And I was like, what is going on here? I don't know what to say about it other than it kind of speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, it's a little spicy.
It's a lot spicy. And I wonder if anybody's walked out of the show being upset about what they're singing about, because, in the moment, I don't really think about it. It's not until afterward where I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to wonder if somebody's, they leave the show, they finish their day in Magic Kingdom, they go back to their hotel later, they're laying there at night thinking about, did that bear sing about going to a go-go dancer?
And, the even funnier thing is, like, this was sold as a vinyl record when the attraction first opened. I don't know in recent years, like, when's the last time that album has been sold, but it was sold as a record, so people were going home and listening to this, and you probably had some kids singing it. Like,
it is streaming on most of the services.
Like official from Disney?
Yeah, you can go onto iTunes and buy the album.
Okay, now this reminds me of like Disney Plus, where this is going to seem so random, but like on Disney Plus, have you noticed how they are entirely inconsistent as to what they consider appropriate and what they don't?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There are things on there that you're just like, oh my God, like what they said, what it's about, what we're seeing doesn't feel Disney. But then they do stuff like extend Daryl Hannah's hair digitally in Splash so you don't see her butt cheeks. And you're like, wait a sec, how is that not okay, but this is okay?
Yeah.
And it's such a frustration for me with Disney Plus. They just pick and choose when something is inappropriate. And like, that's kind of what this feels like to me. There are things in the theme parks that have been changed because, like, I don't know, that's entirely inappropriate. But they're like, nah, Country Bears, they're all good. They're all good.
Yeah.
Singing about strippers in there. It's all good. Unbelievable to me. Shall we move on to Wendell and Henry's song?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mama Don't Whip Little Buford. All right.
Classic.
Yeah, so we got Mama Don't Whoop Little Buford. Mama Don't Pound on His Head. Mama Don't Whoop Little Buford. I think you should shoot him instead.
And then Henry says, bang.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're talking about murdering people in the Country Bear Jamboree. I mean, gosh.
And this was one that everybody kind of assumed would get cut when they announced that they were going to edit the show, and then it was still in there after it reopened.
Yeah, I don't remember. What was it like when it was a fairly fast turnaround. I think it was like March it closed and it reopened in October, if I'm remembering correctly, something like that.
Yeah,
but
it was pretty quick.
What was the reaction when people, fans heard, oh, we're going to be editing the Country Bear Jamboree? Was there an uproar?
Oh, people were terrified.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. But, again, it was a lot of, like I was saying too, just people were glad it was still sticking around. And it was also just, at the time, nice to see it get a refurbishment because they, stuff like the Tiki Room and Country Bears and Carousel of Progress, they kind of just do the bare minimum to maintain them and keep them running.
Yeah, Carousel needs a huge upgrade. Huge. And there'd been rumors for a long time that the 50th was going to be the time to do it. And I don't think we're getting anything for the 50th anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is sad to see these things just kind of, slowly die when they do get to a point where it's like, well, do the bare minimum so we can open it. But it drives me. I feel like this happens a ton with 4D attractions all the time, where like the effects stop working and they're like, it's fine. Like, oh yeah, I can't remember the last time the water squirting has worked in Muppet Vision or certain things. I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Just give it some love. Let's move on to Trixie. Trixie sings, "Tears will be the chaser for your wine after you leave this love of mine. Bright lights in taverns, that's where you'll spend your time, and tears will be the chaser for your wine." I mean, that's some pretty sad stuff going on. There's some pretty adult stuff. Yeah. She's a wino. That's what it comes down to.
And then Henry comments, "That's a mighty big song, Trixie." And then one of the Max Buff and Melman says, "That's not the only thing that's big."
Oh, so is that still in the show, or is that
no? They cut that out.
Oh, that's what they cut out. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's alone because she's large. That's so sad. Is that what they were getting at?
I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, this show's full of problems. I'm glad you love it, but I don't know how much longer it's gonna be there. I mean, I actually can't believe that update was 8 years ago. That does not feel like it was that long ago.
Yeah, jeez.
My gosh, crazy. This other one, we've got Teddy Barra on the swing. This is the bear that comes down on the swing from above. And it's not even the song that's so questionable in here. It's at the end of the song, she goes, "Y'all come up and see me sometime, you hear?" And then Henry, he goes, "Yeah, as soon as I find a ladder, I'll be right up." I'm like, all right, what are you going to do up there? I mean, I don't think I'm reading into this, right? Like, this is what they're going for.
Well, so can I say horny on this show?
Yeah, go ahead. Say horny.
Yeah, so Teddy and Henry are very horny for each other in pretty much all three versions of the show. In the Christmas one, she's got a broken leg. She's in her ski outfit, and she says, "Henry, why don't you come up and sign my cast?" And he says, "As soon as I find a pen, I'll be there."
Oh my gosh!
So it's like, yeah, they got a little thing going on.
I think Mark Davis and Big Al. I don't know where their heads were. I mean, they created some horny characters, apparently. And just speaking of Big Al, there was blood on the saddle. There was blood all around and a great big puddle of blood on the ground. That's just, I mean, that's a weird thing to be singing about it at Walt Disney World.
And yet that song, like, I think every single time I've watched the show, people are laughing the most during that part.
Oh, yeah, that's a very iconic part. And, of course, he keeps singing it even when everybody else moves on to the next thing. And people find it hilarious. And listen, I am so not the sensitive person when it comes to this stuff at all. None of this offends me. I would like to make that clear. I just find it hilarious that it still exists because of the way that people react to things, but also because of where it's located. It's not even like it's Disney's Hollywood Studios or something that, isn't the most, magical place. Magic Kingdom is that pixie dust place, whereas some of the other parks get a bit more adult and real, I would say. Magic Kingdom of all places. Oh my gosh, they should move this to Disney's Animal Kingdom.
If it keeps the show alive, they can move it to the Denny's down the street.
I want Disney's an update for Disney's Animal Kingdom would be interesting. I heard Joe Rohde said something. Who's a genius? But he said something recently that was kind of. I was like, dude, who are you trying to kid here? And somebody on social media was like, oh, are you going to put Zootopia in Disney's Animal Kingdom? And he made a comment like, oh, they wouldn't fit there because Disney's Animal Kingdom is like full of real animals and stuff like that. Something to that effect. And I was like, have you been to Pandora, the world of Avatar? Because, that theory's out the window. Like, any animal of any sort and kind can now be in Disney's Animal Kingdom with Pandora being there. Plus, the original intention was to have that beastly kingdom, which was made-up animals. So if we were going to have dragons initially in that park, I think we can have a walking fox. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Now, a couple of the songs that were cut from the attraction were Pretty Little Devilish Mary and Fractured Folk Song. Now, I'm not super familiar with those. Were those like even more intense than what I just read?
No, Fractured Folk Song is very simple. He would just, here's a fractured folk song butchered by two birds. I wrote these lousy lyrics. I even wrote the words. Like, that's pretty much it. Like,
so it was just a timing thing then.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, the Country Bears live on with some controversial stuff in it. It's interesting. And as we were talking about a little bit, but I want to get more into it, in 1984, the Country Bear Christmas special started at Magic Kingdom and Disneyland Park. And this is probably, until more recent years, this is probably the one I remember most because as a kid, I would usually go to Walt Disney World right after Christmas. So I remember seeing the Christmas version more than anything as a kid, and I loved it. And I'm sad that they don't still do it here in the States because I just thought it was great.
Yeah, and it played all the way up until 2007, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
If you don't leave that show filled with Christmas spirit, I don't even know what to tell you because it's just so Christmassy, feel good. Genuinely good songs. I think Tracks in the Snow, which is the opening song, I think it's genuinely one of the best Disney songs ever made. I love Country Bear Christmas.
Yeah, I would, my assumption is the attraction just hasn't been popular enough to justify putting out the cost to redo it for the holidays. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm surprised to hear that it wasn't bringing in enough of a crowd to continue to do that. Like, it's one of those things like Haunted Mansion Holiday here at Disneyland that I'm surprised isn't kind of more popular than the original.
Right. And, the show system was updated to where they can switch the audio for a show over with the push of a button. All they really had to do was dress the animatronics, and everyone had special outfits and special backgrounds, and there were several props all over the place. It didn't look especially complicated. I don't know. You got Disney, and they're infinitely profitable, and they make so much money, and just it seems so cheap to not offer this as just another thing for Christmas.
It's
your busiest time of year.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad that Magic Kingdom doesn't have the 2 theaters so that they could just have one dressed as Christmas year round and just use that one at the holidays. If it's not super popular, obviously that means it's taking up a larger footprint, but that'd be great if they just, or even have the 3 theaters so they could have all 3 shows, and just depending on the time of the year, this is the one we're going to use. In a perfect world, that would be great.
And I wanted to talk real quick about the development of the Christmas version. It was spearheaded by these 2 Imagineers who worked there at the time, Dave Fettin, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and Michael Sprout. Mm-hmm. And they were huge Country Bear fans, and they decided that the Bears were tired of singing the same songs every day. And so they looked at them as a theater troupe that, would like to do a different show every now and then. So they got blessings from Marty Sklar to develop a special Christmas version. That version opened. It was popular enough. Marty Sklar asked them to make a 3rd version that was more permanent. And that's how we got the Country Bear Vacation Hoedown.
Now, back to what you said about the Christmas one, where it felt like, a theater troupe doing a different version of the show. That's exactly what it feels like to me. Even the name of it, the Country Bear Christmas Special, it just feels like one of those television specials you'd see on TV at that time of year. And, the Country Bear Jamboree is its own separate thing. And it 100% felt that way to me. So I love that that's what they were going for. The Vacation Hoedown, though, now this came around in 1986 at Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, and this, I'm not quite sure why they felt they needed this. Was this supposed to be for summer vacation?
So you mentioned removing questionable content from the show, and so I think that was one of their goals with the vacation version also, because there's really no comments on Trixie's weight. There's really nothing even remotely questionable in the lyrics of any of the songs.
No casts to sign upstairs or anything like that.
Right. But, and what's also interesting, before I forget this, about the Christmas and vacation versions, is most of the songs are original, unlike the original version of the show where there's a lot of just other people's songs kind of redone.
Yeah, so the vacation one, was it supposed to be a permanent thing other than, at Christmas time? Or was it supposed to be just during the summer months? I couldn't figure out, why are they on vacation?
I don't know what their intention was when they were developing it, but it ended up being the permanent show in Disneyland until the show closed in 2001. And it opened in Magic Kingdom as well. And for whatever reason, they switched back from the vacation version in 1994 to the original one, and then just ran the original show, and during Christmas time they ran the Christmas show.
So the cool thing is that these days you can actually still catch all 3 in Tokyo, and they rotate these. So what's how does the rotation work over there?
Okay, the original show runs January to June. And then in June, they switch over to vacation, and that runs until November, when it switches over to, they call it over there, the Jingle Bell Jamboree. And Jingle Bell Jamboree ends after Christmas Day. And then they switch back to the original.
Wow, so the vacation one really is kind of like a summer vacation thing, but the attitude is we're not going to switch it back to the original just to switch it back to Christmas, is what it kind of feels like. So interesting. I mean, pretty fascinating, though, that you can still catch all 3 versions in Tokyo. I would love to see a Halloween version, just saying.
Oh yeah, that would be great. They actually do Halloween decorations in Tokyo on the outside of the theater, and there's ghost bears flying around, and then for Easter they do a Easter egg Teddy on a swing with a little Easter egg Henry looking up from below. And I will say one thing I wanted to point out about the vacation version over there. So both the Christmas and the vacation versions, they have a couple of Japanese exclusive songs. So in the vacation version, they actually sing Achy Breaky Heart. Trixie sings Achy Breaky Heart.
In a foreign language.
Yeah, the first part of the song is in Japanese, and the second part is actually in English.
That's hilarious. I love it. That is so funny. Now, what this sounds like, at the very least, I know you're a diehard Country Bear fan, and there is always that concern in conversation of how much longer will it be a Magic Kingdom, and hopefully it's for a very long time. But if it isn't, it sounds like Tokyo's not going anywhere. Not that, obviously it's a much more expensive and longer flight, but at least it will exist.
Yeah, and really it is like the showpiece version of the show.
Yes.
With what I mentioned before about the entry area and the exit area having the backstage and just how incredible condition the show is over there.
Yeah.
But I will say it's 2 theaters, takes up a large footprint. It's attached to the Tiki Room over there. It looks like they kind of have the same building.
Okay.
And the Tiki Room is just not popular at all. You can go walk in on the busiest day and there's just nobody seeing it. It's just, they do not care about it one bit.
Huh.
So in that case, that's pretty big. 3 huge theaters could be torn down and make a ride there where land is at a premium. But so far they haven't done that or had any indication that they are even thinking about doing that, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the things that's so interesting is, it's semi-popular at Magic Kingdom, but I will say every time I'm in Magic Kingdom, I see those characters as walk-around characters in Frontierland. And I find that so fascinating because I think, most people will see them and maybe other than Liverlips not know any of their names, if any of their names. Right. I find this so fascinating that they're such a big part of parades and just walking around Magic Kingdom. And
they still walk around Disneyland Resort. If they're not meeting in Disneyland, just last Christmas, this December 2019, they were meeting in DCA.
Yeah, I remember them at DCA for a while. Yeah, and which makes no sense considering we don't have that attraction here. And I'm sure most people have no idea who it is. But I don't know, what a bizarre choice, in my opinion.
Yeah, and people still seem interested to meet them, and Big Al I think is relatively recognizable, and
yeah,
but they're certainly not Mickey Mouse or even Moana or something where everybody's going to know them. But yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you think they would ever do a Country Bear Jamboree where they add in Disney bears, such as Winnie the Pooh or Baloo, or would you be interested in seeing that?
I wouldn't be interested in seeing that. The only changeover that sounded both like a nightmare but also fascinating was Jim Hill, he writes about Disney for decades now. He posted a rumor years ago about a change they wanted to do called American Idol.
No.
American Idol.
Oh, no. And now that they own American Idol, oh, no.
Yeah. And the gimmick of the show was that the bears would sing the songs and it was audience participation, and based on applause, a bear would win.
Wow.
But, obviously this never happened. And, there's always rumors of the show going away. I actually, I really liked a fan suggestion from Foxy, who runs Passport to Dreams Old and New. It's a wonderful Disney blog. She said, make the show just a seating area for Pecos Bills, or, sell ice cream in there or something, and just let people kind of come and go and meander around and let the show play on loop or something like that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I wonder if that would become a crowding issue of people. There'd probably be a good amount of people that would want to sit and watch the whole show.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So I guess the Golden Horseshoe here at Disneyland kind of has, when it's showtime, it's very, very busy in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Also, sorry, before I forget about this, I want to talk about the mile-long bar. This was in Magic Kingdom and Disneyland.
Okay.
In the Magic Kingdom version, it's what Pecos Bill is now. But you would exit the Country Bear Theater, and then you would walk in, and then you would see Max, Buff, and Melvin on the wall, animatronic versions, and they would continue singing songs from the show, but with new lyrics.
Huh. This sounds vaguely familiar. I feel like I remember seeing those as a kid.
Yeah, you can. I've watched several videos on YouTube. And by the way, the Christmas show, the vacation show, go on YouTube.
It's
and
all
watch
there.
these if you haven't.
Yeah.
They're very funny. I do think, I'm not just saying this as a Country Bear fan. I do think they're genuinely good, especially the vacation one.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now I got to ask before we get to trivia here. Did you see the 2002 Country Bears movie?
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Is it? Okay, I've never seen it, to be completely honest.
It's awful.
It's bad. Were you looking forward to it?
So no, because this was when I was a very emotional Country Bear fan, because this movie was coming out as the show had closed at Disneyland.
Yeah.
The only good thing about it is the actual bear animatronic outfits themselves in the movie, because they're done by Jim Henson Creature Shop, and they look good, but
yeah,
the story is not great.
Too funny. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to add about the Country Bear Jamboree before we get to some trivia?
No, I feel like I'm going to forget something, and I'm going to be laying in bed later tonight and be all upset that I forgot something. But no, I think I've said what I need to say.
You're going to be laying in bed later tonight thinking of the lyrics and being like, they said what?
Yeah.
Too funny. Alrighty, well, let's get some trivia then.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Guy, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I guess I'll go first.
Alrighty.
So in the original show and the Christmas version, we know the little raccoon's name is Sammy. Mm-hmm. But do you know his name in the vacation version of the show?
They change his name?
So
I guess
technically,
is it Davy for the whole Davy Crockett song thing?
No, they never actually say his name in the vacation version of the show.
Oh.
So this is almost kind of a trick question.
I mean, was this like something amongst cast members? Like they named him as a joke, or like where would I have heard the answer? I guess.
Okay,
if he's...
you wouldn't have heard the answer.
Okay.
So let me say why.
Okay.
In 1996, there was a annual pass holder party at Disneyland, and the big selling point of this party was going backstage at several of the rides. For example, you could go underneath Star Tours and watch the simulator move as the ride was running. It was amazing. So one of the things you could do at this party was walk on stage of the Country Bear Jamboree and take pictures with the bears and go backstage and see, how the show worked and all
Where
that.
is this Disneyland After Dark event in the 21st century? Oh my gosh. Sounds incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. So at this party, all the bears had name tags around their necks. And around Sammy's neck, and this was the vacation version of the show, remember? Around Sammy's neck had the name Randy. And so this was kind of forgotten about for a number of years. And eventually somebody uploaded a video to YouTube, and the Country Bear community found this video and saw that Sammy was named Randy in the vacation version because he's a skunk in the vacation version. So he's not even a raccoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was kind of mind-blowing to realize that after all these years.
I mean, do you think somebody just put it on there, or do you think, like, internally that was his known name? That sounds random.
I don't know. And, now that I think about it, I should try to get in contact with the two Imagineers that developed the show.
Yeah.
and find out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I definitely did not know the answer to that, but my favorite part of that is the talk of that special event. That sounds like an amazing special event. So
yeah, it was great.
I would love for them to do that again. Anybody listening? So my trivia for you, when they were developing the idea and before it was committed to being a Country Bear group, it's been documented that Mark Davis showed Walt numerous different types of bear groups. Do you know what other groups he designed other than Country Bears?
So I've read the Mark Davis book. I think it's called In His Own Words.
Yes, I believe you're right.
Incredible book, by the way. And I remember seeing concept art in there, and it was almost like I don't know if even this is the right way to describe it. Almost like a circus bear act.
There was a marching band, so
a marching band, yeah, that. Kind of thing.
There were two others that he drew up some designs for. Do you have any idea?
I don't remember, no.
Okay, there was a mariachi band, so if you can imagine the Bears mariachi band, as well as a Dixieland band. And I find these all fairly fascinating, considering the original concept was for the ski resort. Like, Country Bears out in the wilderness in a ski resort just makes sense. So I don't know how this marching band, mariachi band, Dixieland band, I don't know where they were going with this in their head. Because, I mean, from what I understand and from everything I've ever read, the intention was always for the ski resort. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is really interesting. That would be really something to go up there. You know, it's snowing outside. You get all cozy to watch a little animatronic show, and it's a mariachi band.
Yeah, that would be bizarre. So I don't know, but that's what the books tell us. Don't trust everything you read, but that's where I read in several locations. So we'll leave it at that. And Guy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your passion about the Country Bears with us. Why don't you let the folks know where they can find you?
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed talking about the Country Bears. You can find me on Twitter at Guy Selga, GUYSELGA. You can find me over at the place I work for, touringplans.com, and at touringplans on all the social media sites. We're a trip planning website for Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Save time and money in the theme parks. Check us out.
Fantastic. Well, till the next time we get to enjoy the Country Bear Jamboree, you can just listen to this episode over and over again. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode of Disney Coast to Coast, you'll want to check it out as we discussed the in-depth backstory of Dinoland USA. And all I'll say about next Wednesday's episode is step right up and come on in. There's where the fun begins. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And don't forget that you can gain early access to DCTC episodes and so many more bonuses by visiting patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.